Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jean Renoir, and I'm the author of the picture The Grand Illusion. And I'm very happy to present it to you.
99999!
Welcome to Cinema Stories, a show about what it takes to make film history. I'm Tyler, and today we're taking a look at a movie that probably shouldn't exist, because it had the full might of the Nazi propaganda machine on a mission to destroy every copy, like a Terminator sent back in time naked in one of those energy ball things. I'd like to thank Mubi for sponsoring this episode. Try Mubi free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description. When the Nazis seized power, they immediately took control of the media. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels understood the power of cinema and how to wield that power for evil. But just as the Nazis were preparing to strike, a movie about the Great War by legendary director Jean Renoir was gaining popularity in Europe. It was called The Grand Illusion and basically said, war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. This was a problem for the Nazis who were gearing up to start the Second Great War, World War II. Goebbels dubbed the movie Cinematographic Enemy Number One and set his sights on eradicating every copy and keeping its message from dismantling Hitler's warped plans for the world. So what made the Grand Illusion so threatening to the Nazis' vision? This is a story of how the Nazis tried and failed to destroy Renoir's masterpiece. Our story begins in 1937, a year that would see the Hindenburg disaster, the first Daffy Duck cartoon, Russia doing fucked up shit, Japan doing fucked up shit, The Hobbit published, Jack Nicholson born, Amelia Earhart mysteriously disappear, Lincoln's head added to Mount Rushmore, and the premiere of Grand Illusion at the Venice Film Festival, directed by popular filmmaker Jean Renoir. But just who is Jean Renoir? It's time for a mini-bio. Jean Renoir was born in Paris, France in 1894. He was the son of the extremely famous Impressionist painter Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Yes, this one. Jean Renoir had a very privileged upbringing because of his father's success, and he and his two brothers pursued a career in the arts. However, filmmaking wasn't his first choice. He first wanted to be a potter, but gave it up when he realized that people were only buying his pottery because of his famous father. He also served in World War I, flying reconnaissance missions for the French army. His experiences during the war had a profound effect on him and turned him into a pacifist. He later turned his sights to his childhood love of movies, directing his first silent movie in 1924, but didn't see commercial success until he began making talkies. By 1937, when our story begins, he was well established and popular. With the threat of a new war looming, he decided to take a look back on his experiences during World War I, a war that was supposed to be the war to end all wars. This would result in the Grand Illusion. The movie follows two French aviators during World War I, named Bourdieu, played by Pierre Freinet, and Maréchal, played by the great Jean Gabin, who are shot down and taken to a German prison camp for prisoners of war to be imprisoned in. World War I was unprecedented, and there were many aspects of a global war that people just weren't prepared to deal with. One of these aspects was the huge number of POWs. Military historian Jonathan F. Vance gave a talk on the history surrounding the events of the Grand Illusion, noting that this was arguably the first time that captivity was a shared mass experience, and governments were overwhelmed trying to figure out what to do with all these people. I can only imagine how rich the makers of harmonicas became during the war.
That's sorta nice. What are you in for?
Atmosphere.
And it wasn't just the camps that were unprepared, the prisoners were as well. At the time, soldiers prepared for the possibility that they might be injured or killed, but not for imprisonment.
Well, which would you rather be done in by? A bayonet or a machine gun? Oh, a machine gun, naturally. Naturally, that's just my point. They're both pieces of steel ripping into your guts. Only the machine gun is quicker, cleaner, and less painful, isn't it? But what does that prove? That proves that most of us are more afraid of getting hurt than of getting killed.
There was also a lot of shame associated with capture. It was thought that a true soldier should choose death over capture, which is why immediately after entering the camp, Bourdieu and Maréchal find that their fellow prisoners are currently planning an escape.
À quoi c'est un terrain de golf à jouer au golf, un court de tennis à jouer au tennis? Un camp de prisonniers, ça sert à s'évader?
The movie shows prisoners and their captors with a surprising lack of animosity toward each other. There's a mutual respect between them, almost like players in a game. And of course, nobody knows the rules of the game more than Jean Renoir. Seeing how nice the Germans treat their prisoners on the opposite side of a war is almost like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Alors, messieurs, amusez-vous bien.
gegen die Erde unserem verstorbenen, tapferen Feinde leicht werden.
They're even allowed to receive packages and mail from their families while in the camp, and yet still, they want to escape. I imagine that if you were to ask them why they insist on escaping when treated so well in a World War I prison camp, they would probably respond, "Wait, why are you calling it World War I?" Uh-oh. It's no wonder the Nazis, fueled by hate, would be against treating one's opponent with such humanity. There was a bond and mutual respect among officers even from different countries. The code of honor among these men meant that an officer should always be treated as a gentleman, even as a POW. It's almost like they're happy to see an officer arrive at the camp just so they have someone to hang out with. Because of this, officers were treated with respect and were relatively comfortable during their captivity. Officers also weren't required to work while imprisoned, so they had a lot of free time on their hands, time which was often spent planning escapes. So, do they escape? Well, what happens is...
Don't tell me! You know it's no fun unless I read it myself! What are you trying to do? Ruin my Sunday!
Alright, I know, no spoilers. The Grand Illusion was released in 1937 as fascism was rising in parts of Europe, and it's no surprise that the movie's themes of pacifism and equality were, not popular in those areas. But what is surprising is the power the movie was believed to have. Despite clashing with fascist ideology, it was respected even by those who suppressed it. Grand Illusion played at the Venice Film Festival and quickly became the favorite to win the top prize. But before it could, Italian dictator Benito Mussolini swooped in and blocked it. The festival invented a new prize, specifically created for Renoir's anti-war movie. But get this, despite having intervened to block the movie from winning at Venice and outright banning the movie in Italy, Mussolini actually liked the movie and owned a copy. He liked it so much, in fact, that he asked Renoir to come to Rome to teach at the Centro Sperimentale, Italy's leading film school. The French government agreed to this, and Renoir taught for several weeks, but soon the war broke out, and he had to flee the country. The reaction to the Grand Illusion in Germany was even stronger than it had been in Italy. Propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels called the movie Cinematographic Enemy Number One, and not only banned it, but also ordered the destruction of every print. It actually sounds like a really cool tagline for the movie. The Grand Illusion, Cinematographic Enemy Number One. So the Nazis set out to wipe the Grand Illusion off the face of the earth, and they almost did. But before we get into that, a message from our sponsor, Mubi. If you've been following my channel, you already know about Mubi's incredible lineup of hand-picked movies and that they are always adding new ones. You also know that all of their titles are chosen by fellow cinephiles and often curated into retrospectives, specials, and specific subgenres. But did you know that Mubi just launched a new film magazine? It's called Notebook and features original contributions by film artists, writers, curators, and archivists about a variety of movie-related topics. Head to Mubi.com and enter your email to be notified when the next issue comes out. I've been a big fan of Denis Villeneuve ever since Prisoners came out, but I haven't seen much of his early stuff. Well, right now on Mubi, you can see a retrospective of early Villeneuve movies. But right now I'm going to finally watch Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain. You can watch it too by going to Mubi.com/CinemaTyler and getting 30 days for free. That's MUBI.com/CinemaTyler for a whole month of great cinema for free. Or join CinemaTyler on Patreon at the $5 level and get extended access to Mubi as a perk. And now back to the show. The Grand Illusion was playing in theaters when the Germans invaded Vienna in 1938, and Renoir was proud to see that it had gotten under Goebbels' skin enough that the Nazis immediately shut down all screenings of the movie. Later, when they invaded Paris in 1940, they seized and destroyed every copy they could get their hands on. Weirdly, the movie was also banned by the French government before the invasion. In the fall of 1939, when France joined the war, French military authorities found the movie to be demoralizing because it promoted pacifism and friendship with the enemy. When the new Nazi-allied Vichy government was established, the movie was, of course, banned there as well. And in Nazi-occupied France, propaganda posters used pictures of Marcel Dalliot, who plays a Jewish POW named Rosenthal, as an example of a quote-unquote typical Jew. It's unclear exactly how many copies of the movie survived the war. In 1942, an Allied bombing raid hit a major film lab outside Nazi-occupied France, destroying everything inside. It was concluded that the original camera negative had been destroyed. The original camera negative was special. It was the highest quality version of the movie without being duplicated or modified. It was the actual movie as seen by Renoir's camera. In 1946, a duplicate negative, presumably a generation or two removed from the original camera negative, was found, but was immediately lost after it was sent to France. When the movie was re-released after the war, it had been heavily edited following criticisms of being too pro-German. They cut out the breakdancing scene, the talking dog, and the entire rap battle scene. Okay, so those aren't the real edits, but some are pretty weird. To avoid spoilers, I'm going to talk about them in the Patreon aftershow. In 1952, Renoir and Charles Spack, the co-screenwriter, were able to purchase the rights to their own movie and begin restoring it using French, German, and American duplicates that had been cut up and censored in different ways. An editor spent months painstakingly reconstructing the movie from these butchered prints, but it wasn't working.
I was ready to give up when, unexpectedly, I received a letter from a very charming lady. This very charming lady was a captain in the American Army. Exactly, a captain in the American Film Service. And she had found a negative of The Grand Illusion in a blockhouse in Munich. This negative had been taken to Germany by the Nazis during the occupation of Paris.
This was the duplicate negative that was lost after being delivered to France. From this, they were able to restore the movie to its full length, though the quality was degraded. They found that some of Erich von Stroheim's lines were hard to hear, so they reached out to him to re-record them. He agreed, but sadly passed away before he could do it, and the movie had to be released as it was. This new full-length version was released in 1958 and received critical acclaim. So the full version existed, but in a degraded quality. It's a shame because if they had the original camera negative, they could have used it for a full restoration. But alas, the original had been destroyed. At least, that's what everyone believed. But the crazy truth was that the Nazi who headed the Third Reich's film archive had secretly worked with the French film archivist to protect some movies from destruction, and among them was the original negative of The Grand Illusion. The French film archivist Henri Langlois was in cahoots with the Nazi film archivist Frank Hensel. Hensel was actually appointed to president of the German Film Archive by Goebbels in 1934, well before the war broke out. It seems Hensel was a devoted cinephile and was tipping off Langlois when things were about to be confiscated. Instead of destroying the original camera negative, he sent it to the film vaults in Berlin. After the war, Berlin was split into two blocks, and the film archive was on the Russian side. And the Russians took all of the film cans to the Russian film archive in Moscow. What's crazy is, over the years they've been transferring all of their silver nitrate film negatives onto safety stock and destroying the originals, because silver nitrate is highly flammable. But, before they got to The Grand Illusion, they sent it to the film archive in the French city of Toulouse as part of a film exchange. The Toulouse Film Archive stored the silver nitrate film in their vaults. At this point, the full re-release version of The Grand Illusion existed, so no one was looking for the original negative anymore. It wasn't until the 90s, when technology advanced enough to make better transfers of silver nitrate film, that Toulouse began transferring their silver nitrate collection, and were surprised when they stumbled upon the actual original camera negative of The Grand Illusion. A new, higher quality version made from the original negative was released in 1999. It also contained the full audio, so Stroheim's original lines were recovered. Sadly, Renoir never found out that his masterpiece had been restored to its full glory, because he had died 20 years earlier. So what is it about Grand Illusion that makes its preservation so important even today? And what made the movie so hated by Adolf Hitler, Joseph and other assholes?
What's the point? What's the fucking point in any case?
Dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt eine Stimme ab, wenn ja!
Despite all the backlash and attempts to destroy or censor the movie following the outbreak of World War II, The Grand Illusion was a huge hit when it premiered in Paris in 1937. In fact, it was the biggest box office hit of that year. It had similar success when it premiered in New York in 1938. It ran for 26 weeks and was voted Best Picture of the Year by the National Board of Review. It was also the first foreign language movie to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And of course, it spined #1 in the motherfucking Criterion Collection. The basic message of the movie is the idea that the need to divide humanity into countries, ideologies, and warring militaries is just an illusion. And this was the message Renoir released as the world was on the brink of the Second World War. a sort of mix between reality and fantasy. On one hand, it was very similar to Renoir's experience and included highly realistic details, such as Gabin wearing Renoir's actual uniform in the movie. On the other hand, it showed a vision of peace between France and Germany that was impossible at that moment in history. However, that peace was desperately wanted. In 1937, France was still recovering from the after effects of World War I. The population of young men was seriously depleted, and there was anxiety around the lack of recruits if another war broke out. The hope that war could be avoided was probably at least part of the reason the movie struck such a chord with the French public at the time. It let them see a kinder vision of their German neighbors. When asked about the effectiveness of war movies, Renoir said, "In 1936, I made a picture named The Grand Illusion, in which I tried to express all my deep feelings for the cause of peace. The film was very successful. 3 years later, the war broke out."
La Grande Illusion is not exactly a film. It is an assemblage of memories which lay dormant in the depth of my heart. It is also the expression of my ideal of a better understanding between men of different nations and races. I had already been deeply moved on first learning that directors, artists, and eminent personalities of Hollywood had welcomed my film with sympathy. Afterwards, it was favored with the high honor of being projected at the White House on the birthday of Mrs. Roosevelt. I really did not need this distinction to increase my enthusiasm for your president, and it is hardly necessary to say how much this event gave me confidence in the future.
President Roosevelt was thought to have declared that it was a must-see for all democracies of the world, though apparently it was actually a journalist who said this, and it was attributed to Roosevelt later. The thing that's really crazy about the movie is that this incredibly simple idealistic hope was so threatening to entire governments that they wanted it wiped out. And it says a lot about the power of movies that not only was the Grand Illusion suppressed, but that people went to such lengths to preserve it. The movie narrowly survived annihilation, as did the movie's ideologies during World War II. The fact that we can still watch the movie today perhaps gives us hope that these ideas will survive our current issues as well.
We have a minute left. If we were loading on the Ark now, and you could grab 4 or 5 films, not your own, but other people's, to save on the Ark for posterity, what would you grab? 2 films.
Two films.
Yeah.
2 films. 2 films. Grande Illusion of Renoir.
Yeah.
And something else.
Join me in the Cinema Stories after show, where we're going to talk about The Grand Illusion and see if we can come up with a cast list for a terrible remake of the movie. You can watch it right now for $1, and it'll go into the $5 archive when my next video goes up. Do you have a favorite banned movie? Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, I would have to say Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, even though he was the one who banned his own movie. But other than that, maybe The Manchurian Candidate. I heard that one got banned after the Kennedy assassination, but that was a crazy movie. And then, a kind of a departure, but Raffenstein, I have Vin Diesel.
Okay.
Yeah?
I considered him as well.
Really?
Yeah.